Have you here today, friends? We're gonna jump in and do some Bible reading today. So let's switch this around so you can see better. We're in Genesis today, 12 through 15. So, yeah, jumping back to Genesis. So, in the Gospel yesterday, going back to Genesis today, and we're looking at Abraham. So, where we last left off in Genesis, there was simply the introduction of the genealogy of Abram. And if I interchange Abraham and Abram, no, they're the same person. Abram is, you know what, let's just go look that up a minute rather than me telling you. So, Genesis 12, Abram. Exalted father is Abram. And see, original name of Abraham. Does it give me Abraham? I can just switch to, no, it doesn't. So let's go back to our text. Oh, no, it won't be Abraham here. It'll be Abram for a while before he changes his name. So it's exalted father, which is very interesting that his name is Abram, exalted father, and we'll learn that he has no children. And then I believe, I'm going off memory here, that Abraham, which he won't be changed his name to until later, is the father of many nations. So, just an aside, and I like to do that. So, sorry if you don't and you go, why are you always looking up names? Well, that's kind of one of my things. I like the meaning of words, and names have meanings behind them. When we were naming our children, we were very conscious of what is the meaning of their name before we chose a name. Whether we really just liked the sound of it or not, we did that. We also with one of my children had a meaning we wanted for a name, and we tried to find a name with that meaning. We didn't actually get successful at that, so they didn't get that name. So anyway, let's jump into our text for today and see where we're at. You know what? Just a second. I got one more thing to do before we get started. Okay. All right. We're in Genesis 12. I'm going to just flip this a minute so it'll be easier for me to come back and find this so I can edit it down. So, all right. So we're in Genesis 12 today, and that's where we're going to start our reading. So, the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's house to the land I will show you." Now here's the promise. That's why it's set off differently. I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. There's a lot going on in this promise. This promise gets repeated again. So there's the clause of how does this promise get fulfilled. The way in which it gets fulfilled is for him to be obedient in going from his country and his father's household and his people to the land I will show you. Notice he doesn't tell him what land it is yet. He just says the land I'll show you. So I chuckle at this, how often this is the way that God does things. He says, "This is the direction to go. When you get there, you'll know you're there. I'll let you know. So go to the land I'll show you. Which land is it? Just go. I'll show you what's next. You just get steps along the way. You can only see what your faith is able to carry you to next. But your overall faith, I gotta know the big picture. I'm following God. I know the big picture. He's taking me to a land. Where is it? I don't know. Don't have details. Perhaps this is one reason why I don't often care about the details of things. I just go, yeah, I know the big picture. God's going to take me to the land. He's going to show me. Well, where is it? I don't know. I don't care. And I don't ever ask all the questions. We don't see Abram ask questions here. God, well, how long is the journey going to be? Where am I going? How many people are going to be there? How big is it? He doesn't do any of those things. And I tend to say that's generally what I do. It's we're going to go on a mission trip. Where are we going? We're going to Guatemala. What are we going to do? Well, we'll build a house. How big is the house? I don't know. Where's the house? I don't know. Do we have all the supplies? Yeah, someone else is taking care of that. We'll have all the supplies. How much does it cost? Well, they gave us an estimate. We'll just raise as much money. We'll build what we can. What? What do you mean? We need more details. Yeah, I don't. I'm good with that. Yeah, somebody else will figure it out. Yeah, we'll figure it out as we go along. Yeah, it's all good. Let's go. So sorry for the little distraction there. We're going to take a long time today if I keep doing that. But I do need to say this promise here is repeated. And one of the things that, as you read through the Old Testament, that they seemed to miss is all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you. One of the things that happens in setting things out is sometimes the first thing is the most important, sometimes the last thing is the most important. You build up to it. So there is I will make you a great nation and you will be blessed. This is more of a chronology. That has to happen first. I will make your name great and you will be a blessing. That can follow. That could be simultaneous. Okay? I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. That's going to be a result after the first verse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. That has to happen later, last. That has to be the culmination of things. That's the crescendo. And so, as we read through the Old Testament, their focus often seemed to only be, even in the New Testament, I should say, their focus often seemed to only be on the first phrase, I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you. That's it. That's all they wanted. And they wanted to be blessed as descendants of Abraham. That's all they were looking at. That's what their focus was. So, all right, so let's get back to the text. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out from the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Boom. One sentence, they're there. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Morah at Shechem. At that time, Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your offspring I will give this land. So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. Okay, I want you to see what happens here. Not going to go into a lot of details, but Abram sees God. God talks to him. His response is to build an altar. You don't just build an altar and it's just there. You build an altar and have a sacrifice. It doesn't give all that. We should understand that's what's happening. He's giving a sacrifice of glory and praise to God for what God has just promised. From there he went toward the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai to the east. Now Ai should be a name that you remember. It's one that we read in Joshua, and let's just go and double check it in case you weren't with us when we read that. Oh, I need to go back. No, we don't. Should still be here. There we go. What verse is that? Ai in these 8. Okay. I don't want to just tell you off the top of my head. I want to show you. Oh. Did I read that wrong? Oh, I went too far. Okay. Oh, that's right. Because here they translate it differently, or transliterate, I should say. Heap of ruins. That's what the name of this city is. Heap of ruins. So hopefully you remembered that from Joshua in our reading. So we're looking at Joshua at the same time that we're looking at Abram coming to land. Or we already looked at Joshua. Now we're looking at Abram first seeing the land. And Abram set out and continued toward the Negev. That's in the south. That's the desert. From there, now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe. As he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but will let you live. Say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you. When Abram came to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that Sarai was a very beautiful woman, and when Pharaoh's officers saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and she was taken into the palace. He treated Abram well for her sake, and Abram acquired sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. All right, I'm just going to pause there. Okay, so we have a famine in the land, but Abram is in the land that God said he's going to show him and he's going to give him. We don't have any kind of thing that says there's... that Abram had a conversation with God, and God said, yeah, that's cool. Go ahead, go down to Egypt. Yeah, I just wanted to show you it. You can leave. You can come back. He doesn't do that. He leaves because there's a famine. He goes to Egypt. What does he do when he gets to Egypt? He's not putting his faith and trust that God will protect him. God has given him a promise that all nations on earth will be blessed through him. Why does he, in this case, have a fear for his life? And I'm not being accusatory. I'm saying, why? Well, we're all human and we all do that from time to time, but I wanted to point out he doesn't seem here to be in conversation with God about this. He has a deception that he plans to perpetrate, a ruse that he's going to pull, and so he's successful in it. However, doesn't fool God. So we continue in 17. But the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife Sarai. So Pharaoh summoned Abram. What have you done to me? He said. Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her to be my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and go. Then Pharaoh gave orders about Abram and his men, and they sent him on his way with his wife and everything he had. So he perpetrates a deception upon Egypt. I can't help in some ways but think that the later slavery could in some ways have been connected with this incident. And I don't want to say directly, indirectly, whatever. I'm just saying I wonder at times. There's nothing in Scripture that says that. Just wondering out loud here. But he goes because of the famine in the land, and then he has to return. What's interesting is we could also look at, there's a famine in the land when Ruth leaves. If we read the book of Ruth, Ruth doesn't leave. Naomi leaves, and then returns with Ruth. So if there's a famine in the land, something should be considered wrong with the spirituality of people. Here we have a demonstration in some ways of something not quite perfect right with the spirituality of Abram and Sarai, because they go and they demonstrate that. So, second thing, and I don't want to take long on this. I believe Sarai was 65, maybe I'm wrong, regardless. And I figured the age out before, but regardless of her age, Abram is 75. I thought Sarah was 10 years younger, but if she's 15, whatever, she's 60, then whatever the case may be. How beautiful is she that at that age, he's worried that someone's going to kill him and take her as his wife. I just have to say, the perhaps the most two beautiful women in Scripture. I guess I'll put three. Here's the three contestants for Miss Old Testament. Is Sarai, who Abram's worried about being killed because of her beauty. Bathsheba, who David is allured by, and Esther, who wins a beauty contest to become queen. So yeah, very interesting. Let's not spend any more time in that though. Let's keep going with Abram. So Abram went up from Egypt to the Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot went with him. Abram had become very wealthy in livestock and in silver and gold. From the Negev he went from place to place until he came to Bethel. Bethel, that is the house of bread, which is where I was mentioning Naomi and Ruth. To the place between Bethel and Ai, heap of ruins, so house of bread and heap of ruins, where his tent had been earlier and where he had first built an altar. There Abram called on the name of the Lord. So he travels down to Egypt. Now he's returned to the land. He goes back to where God spoke to him, and now he's going to call on the name of the Lord. Now Lot, who was moving with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, but the land could not support them while they stayed together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. And quarreling arose between Abram's herders and Lot's. The Canaanites and Perizzites were also living in the land at that time. So Abram said to Lot, let's not have any quarrels between you and me, or between your herders and mine, for we are close relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. This is just so generous in a sense, because God has promised Abram the whole of the land. He brings Lot along with him. Lot is what? He is being blessed because of Abram. That's what we see here. The fulfillment is happening. I'm going to bless you. And I'm going to bless all nations who bless you and curse all those who curse you. So we see here in Lot the blessing abounding. And so they need to separate. He has a plan. So Lot looked around and he saw the whole plain of the Jordan toward Zoar was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, foreshadowing. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out towards the east. I'm just going to pause and so Lot looks to see where it's best. He takes the best for himself. There's greed, there's selfishness, whatever you want to call it, or look a different direction and just say laziness. Yeah, that'll be easier over there. So don't know the motivation entirely. However, it's not the same motivation as Abram. Abram's is to bless Lot. Abram's is to remain in relationship and to have things be good. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of Jordan to the east. The two men parted company. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. The Lord said to Abram after Lot had parted from him, look around from where you are to the north and to the south, to the east and the west. All the land that you see I will give you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Go, walk through the length and the breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you. So Abram went to live near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron, where he pitched his tents. There he built an altar to the Lord. So he does. Go, look, walk the length and breadth. So he starts doing that. When he gets farther away, he pitches his tent and there builds an altar to the Lord. So this is the second altar that he's built, thanking God for the promise that he received from him. At that time, when Amraphel Raphael was king of Shinar, Aroic king of Alasar, Laomer king of Elam, and Tidal king of Goyim. These kings went to war against Bera king of Sodom, Bersha king of Gomorrah, Sinab king of Admah, Shemeber king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar. All these latter kings joined forces in the valley of Sidon, that is the Dead Sea Valley. For 12 years they had been subject to Kedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Kedorlaomer and the kings allied with him went out and defeated the Rephaites in Ashtaroth, Karnaim, the Zuzites in Ham, and the Ammonites in Shava Kiriathaim, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir as far as El Paran near the desert. Then they turned back and went to En Mishpah, that is Kadesh, and they conquered the whole territory of the Amalekites as well as the Amorites who were living in Hazazon Tamar. That's a lot of syllables there. Then the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar, marched out and drew up their battle plans in the valley of Sidon against Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goyim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Alasar. 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of tar pits, and when the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some of the men fell into them, and the rest fled to the hills. The 4 kings seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, all their food, then they went away. They also carried off Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, since he was living in Sodom. So Lot picks the good land, and he ends up in the middle of a battle. That's what's going on here. A man who had escaped came and reported this to Abram the Hebrew. So sounds a little bit like Job that we read earlier. So this group came and did this, and I alone escaped to come and tell you. A man who had escaped came and reported this to Abram the Hebrew. Now Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre the Amorite, a brother of Eshcol and Aner, all of whom were allied with Abram. When Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. During the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, together with the women and the other people. After Abram returned from defeating Kedorlaomer and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley. Okay, pause there. So Lot is captured. Abram hears of it. Abram goes and he rescues and gets all his possessions and family and people back. And then the king of Sodom comes out and meets with him. But we don't have any... I guess we have Melchizedek is in here too. I thought maybe we were just switching. Okay. After Abram returned... 18. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High. And he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abraham by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and praised be the God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hands. Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. I don't know if that's everything he owned or everything he conquered. Either way, he is giving from the blessings he has to the king of Salem, and Melchizedek is considered a priest of God. So he's not only king, he is also a priest. You know what? I'm going to just look up the name Melchizedek because it's probably, if I remember, it's a pretty cool name. So we're verse 18. Oh, we need the next chapter. I think, aren't we in 13? Oh no, we're in 14. Okay. And verse 18, Melchizedek. So Melchizedek is, my king is Sedek. Oh, I thought it had something else. I thought it was something else besides Sedek. Okay, it's just not translating Sedek. I'm not going to go do that. Sorry about that. So Melchizedek, he goes and he does offerings to him. And look how he makes a declaration to him. So then the king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, With raised hand I have sworn an oath to the Lord, God Most High, creator of the heaven and earth, and I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or a strap of a sandal, so that you will never be able to say, I made Abram rich. I will accept nothing but what my men have eaten, and the share that belongs to the men who went with me, to Aner, Ashcol, and Mamre. Let them have their share. So the king comes out to say, oh, hey, Ukulele, you're lurking. That's great. Good to see you here. So after the defeat, the king of Sodom comes out, who notice didn't participate. He says, yeah, you keep the goods, but I want my people back. Thanks for doing that. And Abram's like, no, I'm not keeping anything. The people who went with me, they get their share. That's fine. I'm good with that. You're getting back everything, though. There is no way that I'm going to let you say that this is what caused me to become great. No, God is who's going to make me become great. And so interesting. So Abram gives a tenth, then he gives the rest away to those who were with him and to the king of Sodom, who some of it belonged to. Continuing on. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. So Abram acts justly here. He acts appropriately. He honors God, and now God gives him another vision. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless? And the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. So perhaps this is interesting in the sense of, and I know it's been a little bit. We started with Mary just a few weeks ago when the angel came saying, How can this be? So God has been promising him to make him a great nation, and now Abram's finally asking the question, how can this be since I remain childless? Then the word of the Lord came to him, This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look up to the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. Then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. Abram believed the Lord, and it was credited to him as righteousness. So his belief in the promise of God is what made him righteous, not his acts that he would do. So love that phrase and idea, and then that comes out in Hebrews, which I think other people on Twitch were going through earlier. So yeah, I won't add any more to that. I guess I will. But notice he says, a son who is of your own flesh and blood will be an heir. Just keep that phrase in mind. He also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of the Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? So the Lord said to him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Okay, so Abram's now saying, where's the proof? I want proof. This kind of sounds a little bit like Gideon. You know, how do I know? How do I know that this is going to be true? So Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the 4th generation your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking pot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, To your descendants I give this land, from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, Kadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Raphaites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. So what we have here is a ritual that sounds very weird to us, but would have been understood to all of the readers of this. This would have been a very common way for a sealing of a covenant between people. So what it is symbolizing here is that these animals are cut in half. The smoking pot is representing God, but going between the two sides is what you would do. Oh, hey, Pastor Brock, good to have you in here. Hey, Marin Reno, good to have you in here. Thanks all for joining. We're just at towards the end of our reading for today. So Wade Mock 77, good to have you here. Thanks for joining. We're just talking about Genesis 12 through 15, and we just had the symbol of sealing the covenant. So let's see. Cannot read that. Oh, is it Marin? Hey, thanks, Marin. Good to have you here. So we have this really strange ritual that's happening. Abram has taken, let me go back and find it. How many animals was it? Okay, a heifer, a goat, a ram, all 3 years old, along with a dove and a pigeon. So he has these animals. Hey, thanks for coming, Pastor Brock. Good to see you. Have a great day. Hey, thanks for the follow, Wade Mock 77. I hope I'm saying that right. Let me know if I'm not. but he's killed these animals. So Abram has just asked God, how do I know that I'm going to possess the land? What do I have as assurance of this? What promise uh, can you give me that I know that you're going to do this? So he says, take these animals and cut them in half. And then Abram is waiting. He's done this. They're all cut in half. They're there, and then the smoking pot comes and goes in between them. I can't see who that one is. It's, you know what? Let me just, no, that'd still be the same. I can say it's showing up over the top of my white background, and I'm having a hard time reading everybody that's following. But thanks everybody for all the follows. I appreciate it. Um, So we've got this scene which seems really weird. We've got Abram falling into a deep sleep. There's a smoking pot that comes and passes between the two halves of these animals. And what we have here is a custom of how you would seal a covenant between people. The way you seal a covenant is you do this. You take animals, you sacrifice them. They're laid out, and you walk between the two halves of the carcasses. And you would say in the passing through, if I don't uphold the promise that I have made, if I don't uphold the covenant that I'm saying here to all of you, then may this happen to me. Maybe I be cut in half. Maybe I be wiped out. May I be, just killed off. And so that's what's happening here. God is sealing now the covenant. He's made the promise back at the beginning of our reading. Abram is gone to the land. He's following through. God has been blessing him. There's been evidence of that. And now here, when God comes again to reassure him of the promise, again, Abram starts to ask questions. He says, how can this be? I'm childless. Because Eliezer's the only one in my family, or sorry, he's a servant, so I have no heirs, and a servant will become my heir. And he's like, no, it's going to be your own flesh and blood. And so then God and Abram are having this conversation, so that Abram will have the assurance of things. But notice this happens after. Where is it at? Oh yeah, verse 6. Abram believed the Lord, and it was credited to him as righteousness. So this isn't an issue of righteousness that is plaguing Abram. It's not an issue of lack of faith. It's simply a matter of, well, in some ways, curiosity and not knowing the plan. So it's, God, help me understand this. So he's already been credited righteousness because he believes God's promise. But then he asks, how's this going to be? And so God takes and makes the sign of the covenant, saying that this will happen. Another thing with covenants that I find fascinating is a covenant is not, in essence, always a two-party agreement. There is a covenant can be more one-sided. We saw that when we saw God's covenant with Noah, and included in that was the earth. There was nothing that Noah needed to do in that covenant. That covenant was a promise of God that was sealed with the symbol of the rainbow. And so by having a covenant, what you have is the one party that agrees to it is bound to it regardless if the other party doesn't. Here, we don't have anything that Abram needed to do other than to go to the land. So Abram, in essence, is saying, I had faith in you, I believed you, I came to the land, I am now waiting. You've made this promise, I just don't know how it's physically going to happen. I don't understand. He's just asking God questions. He's already had the faith to come to the land that God would show him. He's there. God has showed him. God told him to take a walk through the land. He did. He then had an altar to God. In two different places, he's made an altar to God. Now he's asking God for clarification. And so God blesses him by giving him clarification and understanding of what that's going to be. So, okay, that's kind of the end of all of that we read through today, the initial promise of Abram, all of the Lot being with him, the summary of Lot and Abram splitting up because they're becoming both too great in the land, and the land not being able to support both of them. So any questions on that? I know some of you just showed up in the raid, so you missed most of our reading there, but if you had questions, I'm sure glad to be able to answer any of those for you. Oh, and by the way, if you were wondering, Abram's name is Abram at this point. It's not Abraham yet. If you're not sure the name Abram and you only know Abraham, his name changes. And if you're Sarai, his wife, is going to become Sarah, but that hasn't happened yet. So just to clarify those kinds of things that you might have wondered about if you weren't familiar with Abram as a name instead of Abraham. So, okay, see you.